Hello everybody, the Law Gnome is here.
Tell me a story.
For the June 2021 that got away, I actually felt that the movie that we're going to talk about is one that I feel is, at least for me, a very appropriate film for this point in time. Because of the fact that a lot of states are now reopening their movie theaters and preparing to welcome their guests to salvage a summer movie season which will be starting on July 1st. I thought it would be right to discuss a film that talks about a man who is responsible for one of the greatest book series of all time, which turned into, at least for me, what I like to call the most perfect films from a filmmaking perspective, and for me, honestly, just in general. And that, of course, is the 2019 biopic film Tolkien, starring Nicholas Hoult, Lily Collins, and Star Trek's Colm Meaney, and of course, J.R.R. Tolkien, the author that he is, the genius that he was, created some of the greatest books of all time, The Hobbit, which is actually one of my favorite books of all time, and of course the sequels, The Lord of the Rings, which Peter Jackson turned into three of the greatest films ever made. And yes, the following three, which are based on The Hobbit, I really like those too. But Tolkien was a movie that I wanted to see in theaters, but there was just so much going on, and so many other movies that I wanted to see that I just didn't have the time to see it. And also, there were people that were saying that it really wasn't a great film. You could skip it and just wait for Blu-ray and DVD, but part of me still was a little upset that I missed it, especially considering the fact that I have become, without even knowing, a big Nicholas Hoult fan. I mean, I love him as Beast in the X-Men films, but when I found out that he was chosen to play J.R.R. Tolkien in this film, I was saying to myself, how lucky could this man be? Because he is now the person who has depicted two of the most iconic authors in all of literature and popular culture. In Tolkien, of course, as J.R.R. Tolkien, and also as J.D. Salinger in Rebel in the Rye, which is a movie that I absolutely love. So, yes, I still very much wanted to see Tolkien, and I finally got that chance, and I have to say that people do not give this movie the credit that it truly deserves. I personally thought that it was a wonderful film on a great many levels, but before we get into those positives, the only negative that I really have about this film is that it really isn't anything truly special. It does have a couple of dead spots, but very, very few. They're far between from each other. But I personally really felt that even though it is not a Best Picture-worthy film, it still is a very interesting look at this man's life, and more importantly, I think one of the things that really let a lot of people down is the fact that we don't really see much about him writing these legendary stories. As a matter of fact, that's the main reason why I loved this movie, and that's because of the fact that it's about him in his earlier stage in life, building a friendship with some of his friends in high school, fighting World War I, and seeing all of the things in his life that would end up being influential to writing his incredible legendary stories. I really loved seeing J.R.R. Tolkien as a young man. I appreciated the fact that even before he met C.S. Lewis and created the Inklings, he had a different group of friends, a real fellowship in his youth, and the brotherhood that these four boys developed was without a doubt one of the most beautiful bonds of friendship that I ever saw on screen. It reminded me of some really good films that featured those similar brotherhoods, like Rudy and School Ties to a certain degree, and even The Dead Poets Society starring Robin Williams, which is an amazing film. But I really appreciated the fact that we really did not focus on The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings throughout the entire film, and also the fact that we got to see a true relationship and love blossoming between him and his future wife and his only spouse, which is something that you really do not see in the world of popular culture these days. His wife Edith, who he had a very loving and fruitful relationship with throughout his entire life to the end of their days, and just seeing these important things in his life and how they really pushed him forward as a creative mind as well as someone who will become a true icon. I actually took a class in Lord of the Rings when I was in college, and I never even knew the fact that before he created those stories that he was extremely passionate about language, and we really do see that happen a great deal. I also love the TCBS club that he's part of, and I just love that all four of them, while there are some people that are telling them that they gotta take a certain initiative, when they get together, they just throw their hearts onto the table while they sip their tea, and they just go over their true hopes and dreams, that they want to go into the arts, poetry, painting, literature. It is absolutely charming, not to mention the fact that I get one of the greatest scores that I ever heard from Thomas Newman. He has also become one of my favorite composers. I mean, if you really wanted to please the fans of Lord of the Rings, to have Howard Shore score this movie probably would have scored some extra brownie points, but Thomas Newman just has this certain charm and this true fantasy feeling and whimsy throughout his entire composition, and I just loved the score of Tolkien. And I also really, really loved seeing these men in their youth, because when you take a look at the time that they're living in, you wonder, because it's been such a long time since those times when Tolkien was a boy, what exactly were young men and women passionate about? They didn't have video games. They didn't have home theater systems to watch these gigantically epic films. They didn't have all this stuff like rock and roll and K-pop and Beyonce. They didn't have those things. So what was it in those days that made these young men and women so passionate about life? And just seeing the fact that they loved the arts, whether it was books or a fantastic opera for all we knew. It was just such an interesting thing to see about youth. That's one of the few things that I really took away from this film. And I gotta say that I was extremely surprised, because I was expecting an average film, and while I can tell that there are a great deal of people that will classify it as an average film, I took away so much more from it. And like Rebel in the Rye, for me, this is a movie that does have rewatchability, and it is a movie that I would love to add to my DVD collection, because just knowing that Nicholas Hoult is now responsible for being two of the most iconic authors in literature, to me is just an amazing, amazing accomplishment. And also, you will get your Lord of the Rings fix, do not worry, and it is a great way to finish the film. I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but I know, especially if you are a fan of the books, you will really, really like it. There's also some very cool surprises in regards to imagery throughout the film, and that's something that you're really going to take away from it as well. I am going to give Tolkien a 3.5 stars out of 4. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please leave your comments in the box below, and let's discuss Tolkien, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.